The elegant ballroom of the Grand Pacific Hotel buzzed with excitement as San Francisco's most influential people gathered for the annual Children's Education Foundation Gala. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting a warm glow on the wealthy donors in their designer outfits. But among all these powerful people, two souls were about to cross paths in a way that would change their lives forever. Raj Kumar, a 32-year-old tech genius who had built his fortune from scratch, stood near the bar, looking somewhat out of place despite his expensive suit. Unlike many others who were busy showing off their wealth, he was genuinely interested in supporting educational causes. His company, Future Tech Solutions, had grown from a small startup in his garage to a multi-million-dollar enterprise in just 6 years. Yet success hadn't changed his kind eyes and shy smile. On the other side of the room, Lali Chen worked her way through the crowd, warmly greeting the parents of her kindergarten students. At 28, she had already earned a reputation as one of the most dedicated teachers at Sunshine Valley Elementary School. Her simple blue dress might not have been designer-made, but her genuine smile lit up the room more than any diamond necklace could. As fate would have it, both reached for the same glass of water at the refreshment table. Their hands brushed, and Lily quickly pulled back with an embarrassed laugh. "Oh, I'm sorry. Please, go ahead," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Raj found himself captivated by her natural charm. "No, please, you first," he insisted, then added with a grin, "though I suggest the lemonade instead. I just tried it, and it's surprisingly good." That simple exchange turned into hours of conversation. They found themselves sitting at an empty table in the corner, lost in their own world, as Lily shared stories about her students' adventures, and Raj talked about growing up in a small apartment with big dreams. He was refreshed by her honesty and how she spoke about making a difference in children's lives rather than making money. "Wait," Lily said, checking her phone, "it's already midnight. I've been talking your ear off for 3 hours." She stood up, realizing she had an early morning class the next day. "Give me one reason why we shouldn't continue this conversation over dinner tomorrow," Raj said, surprising himself with his boldness. Their first date turned into weekly dates. Raj would show up at her school with packed lunches he learned to cook from YouTube videos. Lily helped him remember to take breaks from his intense work schedule and taught him to appreciate life's simple pleasures. Their different worlds merged perfectly. He brought adventure and possibilities to her life, while she brought warmth and meaning to his. Within months, they became the talk of the city. Not because they were a powerful couple, but because anyone who saw them together couldn't help but notice how they looked at each other. Even the cynical society photographers had to admit there was something special about how the self-made millionaire's eyes lit up whenever the kindergarten teacher entered the room. 8 months after that first meeting, during a normal Tuesday evening, Raj surprised Lily with a picnic on the rooftop of his office building. He had recreated their first conversation with the same glasses of lemonade from the gala. As the sun set over the San Francisco Bay, he got down on one knee. "You make me want to be better every day," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Will you marry me?" Lily's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, unable to speak. The ring was elegant but not flashy. He had paid attention when she mentioned liking simple designs. As they embraced, both felt like they had found their missing piece. The news of their engagement spread quickly. Magazine covers featured their story, the tech millionaire and the kindergarten teacher who fell in love at a charity gala. But unlike other high society couples, their happiness seemed genuine, unaffected by the spotlight. They began planning their wedding, mixing their different traditions and styles. Lily dreamed of having a family, imagining their future children running around their home. Raj threw himself into expanding his company, wanting to build an even stronger foundation for their future together. Everyone who knew them agreed this was a perfect match. Their love story gave hope to those who still believed in fairy tales. Little did anyone know that their story was about to take an unexpected turn that would test the very foundations of their relationship. As summer turned to fall, they worked on wedding plans, chose their dream home, and talked about their future. Nobody could have predicted that their perfect love story was heading toward a moment that would shake both their lives to the core. The morning of October 15th dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for what was supposed to be the happiest day of Lily Chen's life. The luxurious Peninsula Hotel, buzzed with activity as wedding planners, florists, and caterers rushed to perfect every detail. In her preparation suite, Lily sat at the vintage vanity table, watching the makeup artist add finishing touches to her natural look. Her best friend and fellow teacher, Nina, adjusted the delicate lace veil in Lily's hair. "You look absolutely beautiful," she whispered, squeezing Lily's shoulders. The ivory wedding dress, with its supple pearl details, made Lily look like she had stepped out of a fairy tale. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her mother's jade bracelet, something old, something borrowed. The morning passed in a blur of excitement and tradition. Lily's phone stayed surprisingly quiet, no messages from Raj, but she assumed he was busy getting ready himself. "It's good luck not to talk before the ceremony," her mother assured her, helping with the last buttons on the dress. At 11:43 am, exactly 2 hours before the ceremony, Lily's phone dinged with an email. Thinking it was last-minute details from the wedding planner, she opened it casually. Her heart stopped as she read the sender, Office of R. Kumar, CEO. The message was cold, formal, and devastating. "Dear Ms. Chen, on behalf of Mr. Kumar, I regret to inform you that he will not be attending today's ceremony. The wedding is cancelled. All vendors have been compensated for their services. Please accept our sincere apologies for any inconvenience." The phone slipped from Lily's shaking hands, clattering on the marble floor. Nina rushed to her side, reading the message over her shoulder. "This has to be a mistake," she said, immediately trying to call Raj's number. The call went straight to voicemail. The next hour became a nightmare of confusion and panic. Calls to Raj's office were met with polite but firm responses. "Mr. Kumar is unavailable." His best friend and business partner claimed no knowledge of his whereabouts. The wedding planner, looking pale and stressed, confirmed that all services had indeed been paid in full, with a generous bonus for the inconvenience. 500 guests were already arriving at the hotel's grand ballroom. The string quartet was warming up. The 4-tier wedding cake stood perfect and pristine in the corner. Everything looked like a dream come true, except the groom was nowhere to be found. Lily's father, an usually quiet man, took charge of the situation. With tears in his eyes but strength in his voice, he began personally greeting guests at the door, explaining that the wedding was cancelled. The murmurs of shock and sympathy echoed through the lobby. By evening, news had already leaked to social media. Photos of the abandoned bride appeared on gossip websites. Some speculated about cold feet, others about business deals gone wrong. The truth emerged piece by piece. Raj Kumar had boarded his private jet that morning, bound for Singapore. His company announced an unexpected expansion into the Asian market, with him personally overseeing the operation. Lily spent that night curled up in her childhood bedroom, still wearing her wedding dress, too shocked to cry. Her phone filled with hundreds of messages, friends, family, reporters, all wanting to know what happened. But the one person she wanted to hear from remained silent. Days turned into weeks. Lily couldn't escape the pitying looks and whispered conversations that followed her at work. Young children can be surprisingly perceptive, and her kindergarten students noticed her sadness. "Ms. Chen, why are you not wearing your pretty ring anymore?" Little Tommy asked one day, making her heart squeeze painfully. The media frenzy grew worse. Every detail of their relationship was dissected and analyzed. Old photos appeared everywhere. Their first public appearance, the engagement announcement, their last dinner date where they both looked so happy. Speculation ran wild about the reasons for the abandonment, each theory more outrageous than the last. Unable to face the constant attention and sympathy, Lily finally made a difficult decision. She submitted her resignation to Sunshine Valley Elementary, saying goodbye to the children she loved. The parents organized a farewell party, and the genuine love and support from her school community almost broke her composure. As she packed up her classroom one last time, Lily found a drawing one of her students had made of her future family, stick figures of her, Raj, and imaginary children. That's when the tears finally came, not just for the loss of her relationship, but for all the dreams and plans that had shattered. The final blow came when she discovered that all traces of their relationship had been erased from Raj's public life. His company's website no longer mentioned their engagement, and his social media accounts had been scrubbed clean. It was as if their love story had never existed. What nobody knew, not even Lily herself yet, was that she carried a secret that would one day turn this story of abandonment into something much more complicated. But for now, she focused on surviving each day, unaware that fate had plans that would bring their paths crossing again in the most unexpected way. 2 weeks after the wedding that never was, Lily sat in a small medical clinic, staring at the results in her trembling hands. The paper confirmed what she had suspected for a few days: she was pregnant. 6 weeks along, to be exact. The timing meant she had already been carrying new life when Raj left her at the altar. The young doctor watched her with concerned eyes. "Would you like me to go over your options?" she asked gently. But Lily could barely hear her through the rush of thoughts in her head. This child, Raj's child, was growing inside her. The news should have been a moment of joy, shared with a loving husband. Instead, she sat alone, wondering how life could change so dramatically in just 2 weeks. That evening, curled up on her couch with a cup of tea, Lily made her first major decision as a mother-to-be. She wouldn't tell Raj. The man who couldn't even face her to end their relationship didn't deserve to know about this miracle. More importantly, she couldn't bear the thought of him rejecting their child the way he had rejected her. But staying in San Francisco wasn't an option. The city felt suffocating with memories of their time together, and the media still hadn't lost interest in the abandoned bride story. Every street corner, every cafe, every park bench held echoes of their love story. She needed a fresh start, somewhere far from the whispers and pitying glances. 2 days later, Lily walked into her bank and withdrew her life savings, enough for a few months' rent and basic necessities. Her cousin Min lived in Seattle and had been begging her to move there for years. One phone call later, she had a temporary place to stay and a promise of help finding work. The morning she left San Francisco, fog wrapped around the Golden Gate Bridge like a goodbye hug from the city. Lily touched her still flat stomach and whispered, "It's just you and me now, little one. We're going to be okay." But life had an even bigger surprise waiting. During her first prenatal appointment in Seattle, the ultrasound technician kept moving the wand, frowning slightly at the screen. Lily's heart raced. Was something wrong? The technician called in the doctor, who studied the image with growing amazement. "Ms. Chen," the doctor said, "I'm seeing 4 distinct heartbeats. You're carrying quadruplets." The room spun. One baby had seemed overwhelming enough, but 4? The doctor explained the risks, the need for extra care, the likelihood of bed rest in the later months. Through it all, Lily sat in stunned silence, her hand pressed against her stomach where 4 tiny lives were growing. That night, she cried for hours in Min's arms. "I can't do this," she sobbed. "How can I possibly raise 4 babies on my own?" But as the shock wore off, determination took its place. These babies were her family now, and she would move heaven and earth to give them the life they deserved. The pregnancy wasn't easy. By the 4th month, Lily had to stop working her temporary office job. Her body, petite to begin with, struggled to carry 4 growing babies. The doctor ordered partial bed rest, warning about the risks of early labor. Min proved to be an angel, working extra shifts at her restaurant to help with the bills. During those long days of bed rest, Lily started an online tutoring business. She created educational videos, wrote lesson plans, and connected with parents looking for extra help for their children. Working from her laptop, propped up in bed with her expanding belly, she slowly built a client base. The babies grew stronger each week, defying the odds that often faced quadruplets. The doctor called them his miracle babies, amazed at how well they were developing. Lily learned she was carrying 3 boys and a girl. Sometimes, late at night, she would talk to them, telling them stories about their family, carefully editing out any mention of their father. As her due date approached, Lily faced another challenge. The medical bills were mounting, even with insurance. In a moment of desperation, she considered contacting Raj. His wealth could easily cover the expenses. But then she remembered the cold email that had ended their relationship, and her pride won out. She would rather work triple shifts after the babies were born than ask him for help. The local Chinese community, hearing about her situation through Min, rallied around her. Women she had never met brought home-cooked meals. An elderly couple offered their spare room when her belly grew too big to climb the stairs to Min's apartment. A retired nurse volunteered to help during the day so Min could work. At 7 months, Lily went into early labor. The hospital staff moved with practiced urgency, preparing for an emergency C-section. As she was wheeled into the operating room, Lily prayed not for herself, but for her babies. "Please," she whispered, "let them be healthy. Let me be strong enough for them." Hours later, she woke to the sound of 4 distinct cries. 4 tiny fighters, small but perfect, each wrapped in a different colored blanket to tell them apart. As she held them one by one, Lily made them a promise. These babies would never know abandonment or rejection. They would grow up surrounded by love, knowing they were wanted and cherished from the very first moment. What she didn't know then was that fate had a way of bringing hidden truths to light, and that one day their carefully constructed world would collide with the past she thought she had left behind forever. The first year with the quadruplets tested every ounce of Lily's strength and determination. The tiny apartment she shared with Min became a maze of cribs, bottles, and diaper boxes. The babies, Aiden, Blake, Charlie, and little Rose, quickly developed distinct personalities that shone through even in their earliest days. Aiden, the firstborn by 2 minutes, was the quiet observer. He would watch everything with intense dark eyes, so much like his father's that sometimes it made Lily's heart ache. Blake, the second boy, came into the world crying and hadn't stopped expressing his opinion since. Charlie, the smallest of the boys, made up for his size with determination, being the first to roll over and crawl. Rose, the youngest by 5 minutes, had her mother's gentle smile and a way of bringing peace to chaos just by cooing softly. Sleep became a distant memory. The babies took turns being awake, as if they had worked out a schedule to ensure their mother never rested too long. Min joked that they were running shifts like a tiny factory. But even in the exhausting moments at 3 a.m., when Lily was warming bottles while humming lullabies to whoever was fussy, she never regretted her decision to keep them. Her online tutoring business grew steadily, allowing her to work during the precious moments when all 4 babies napped. Parents appreciated her understanding of children's needs, and word spread about the patient teacher who could explain complex topics simply. Within 6 months, she had enough regular clients to move into a small house with a yard, nothing fancy, but it was their own space. The local community continued to be her saving grace. Mrs. Zhang from the Chinese grocery store would slip extra fruit into her bags, claiming they were nearly overripe anyway. Mr. Chen, no relation, from the electronics repair shop fixed her ancient laptop for free when it crashed, saying he needed the practice. The retired nurse, Ms. Wu, still came by twice a week, refusing payment and saying the baby's smiles were enough. As the quadruplets grew, their similarities to Raj became more pronounced, especially in the boys. They had his sharp mind and quick grasp of patterns. By age 3, Aiden was already solving complex puzzles meant for older children. Blake could build impressive structures with his blocks, showing the same engineering instinct his father had. Charlie inherited Raj's dimpled smile, the one that had first caught Lily's heart at the charity gala. Rose was her mother's daughter through and through, but she had her father's determination. When she decided to learn something, she wouldn't stop until she mastered it. At 4, she announced she would learn to read, and within 2 months, she was devouring picture books by herself. Lily worked hard to give them a normal childhood. Birthday parties were simple but filled with love, homemade cakes, balloons, and games in the backyard. She started a small vegetable garden with them, teaching them how to nurture living things. Each child had special one-on-one time with her every week, even if it was just reading a story or drawing pictures together. The questions about their father started around age 5. "Why don't we have a daddy like Tommy?" Blake asked one evening during dinner. Lily had prepared for this moment, crafting a response that was honest without being hurtful. "Sometimes families look different," she explained. "Some have 2 parents, some have 1, some have grandparents instead. What matters is that we love each other." But the children were clever, picking up on things she never said. They noticed how she changed the channel when news about future tech solutions came on, how she never spoke about their father, even when they asked directly. They saw the sadness in her eyes when people mentioned their resemblance to someone she once knew. Still, life settled into a comfortable routine. Mornings were a whirlwind of getting 4 kindergartners ready for school, with everyone having their own special needs. Aiden needed his lucky blue socks, Blake wouldn't eat breakfast without his favorite dinosaur spoon, Charlie had to check his backpack 3 times, and Rose insisted on picking out her own clothes, no matter how mismatched. Lily's tutoring business had evolved into a successful online education platform, allowing her to work flexible hours from home. She had hired 2 other teachers to help with the growing number of students, and her reputation for quality education spread beyond Seattle. The quadruplets thrived in school, each in their own way. Their teachers marveled at their intelligence and creativity, though they sometimes struggled to tell the boys apart. Rose became the unofficial leader of their little group, organizing her brothers and making sure everyone had what they needed. What Lily didn't know was that their peaceful life was about to change dramatically. As she watched her children playing in the park one sunny afternoon, she had no idea that someone else was watching too. Someone who would recognize his own features in the faces of her precious children. The Seattle spring brought unexpected sunshine that Saturday morning. Lily had taken the quadruplets to their favorite park, the one with the red slide and climbing frames that looked like a castle. At 5.5, they were full of energy and needed regular outdoor time to burn it off. Raj Kumar hadn't planned to be at that park. He was in Seattle for a major tech conference, focusing on expanding Future Tech Solutions' artificial intelligence division. The past 5 years had brought him more success than he'd ever imagined, but also a gnawing emptiness he couldn't explain. His assistant had suggested a walk to clear his head before the afternoon's presentations. The sound of children's laughter drew his attention. He watched absently as 4 small figures chased each other around the playground, their movements perfectly coordinated like a well-rehearsed dance. Something about them caught his eye. Maybe it was the way they moved, or how they seemed to communicate without words. Then one of the boys turned, and Raj's heart stopped. He saw his own childhood face looking back at him, down to the slight dimple in the left cheek. The boy called out to his siblings, and 2 more boys and a little girl gathered around him. Each child bore striking features that Raj recognized from his own family photos. His legs felt weak as he counted 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruplets. Their age, their features, the impossible coincidence of finding them here. His brilliant mind raced through calculations he didn't want to face. Then he saw her. Lily stood near the swings, her hair shorter now, but still as graceful as he remembered. She was helping another child on the swing, her gentle teaching manner unchanged by the years. She hadn't noticed him yet, focused entirely on the children. Reg watched as one of the boys, the quiet, observant one, scraped his knee. Lily immediately moved to comfort him, pulling a band-aid from her ever-ready mom purse. The other 3 children clustered around their brother, each offering their own form of comfort. The little girl held his hand, while one brother made silly faces to distract him, and the third ran to get his water bottle. The scene made Raj's chest tight. These children, who showed such care for each other, who moved with such coordination, who bore his features so clearly, they were his. The truth hit him like a physical blow. He had 4 children. 4 children he'd never known about. 4 children who had grown up without him. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, snapping a few discreet photos. Within minutes, he had sent them to his private investigator with an urgent message. The response came quickly. The children were registered at Cedar Grove Elementary School. Their birth certificates listed only Lily as a parent, but the timing matched perfectly. They had been born almost exactly 7 months after what should have been his wedding day. Memories flooded back. Lily's slight nausea in the weeks before the wedding, how she'd stopped drinking coffee, the way she'd placed her hand protectively over her stomach when they danced. Signs he'd missed, or perhaps chosen not to see, caught up in his own fears and doubts. The initial shock gave way to anger. How could she have kept this from him? He had a right to know about his children. Then came the crushing guilt as he remembered how he'd left her, an impersonal email on their wedding day, no explanation, no chance to tell him about the pregnancy. One of the boys looked in his direction, and Raj quickly stepped behind a tree. He wasn't ready to be seen, not yet. His mind was spinning with questions and possibilities. These children needed their father. They deserved to know him, to have the opportunities his wealth and influence could provide. But watching them play, seeing their easy smiles and hearing their laughter, he realized something else. They were happy. Lily had created a loving, stable world for them without his help. The anger faded, replaced by a deep sadness for all the moments he'd missed: their birth, first steps, first words, first day of school. As the children gathered around Lily for snack time, sharing apple slices and cheerfully trading their favorite flavors of crackers, Raj made a decision. He couldn't simply walk into their lives and disrupt the peace they'd found. But he also couldn't walk away again. Back in his hotel room, he called his lawyers. He needed to do this right, through proper legal channels. The irony wasn't lost on him. Once again, he was handling things through intermediaries instead of facing Lily directly. But this time, it wasn't about running away. It was about finding a way to be part of his children's lives without destroying the wonderful foundation Lily had built. What he didn't realize was that his decision would set in motion a chain of events that would force both him and Lily to confront not just their past, but their own fears and prejudices about what makes a family. The courtroom buzzed with an electric tension that could be cut with a knife. At the center of it all sat Lily, a single mother whose life had been a roller coaster of survival and hope. Her 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, sat quietly beside her, their eyes wide and curious. The wealthy businessman who had once abandoned her stood across the room, looking uncomfortable in his perfectly tailored suit. Everyone could feel the weight of 9 years of silence hanging in the air. Lily's lawyer, a sharp-minded woman with kind eyes, began to paint the picture of the last 9 years. She spoke softly but firmly, detailing how Lily had raised 4 children entirely on her own. Old bank statements showed every struggle: freelance design work, late-night projects, careful budgeting. Each document was a testament to a mother's incredible dedication. The oldest of the quadruplets, a bright-eyed boy with a serious demeanor, leaned forward when asked to speak. His voice was steady, almost matter-of-fact. "We never knew about him," he explained. "Mom always told us that families come in all shapes and sizes, and what matters most is love." His younger sister, more emotional but equally articulate, added, "We never felt like we were missing anything. Mom was everything to us, our provider, our protector, our entire world." The businessman shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His expensive watch glinted under the courtroom lights, a stark contrast to the worn-out notebook Lily had been using to take notes. Years of struggle were etched into the lines of her face, but there was a quiet strength that radiated from her. The lawyer produced a stack of documents that told a heartbreaking story. Certified letters that were never answered. Attempts to contact the father through legal channels. Medical records showing the difficult pregnancy, the premature birth of quadruplets, the countless challenges Lily had overcome. "My client never sought to hide these children," the lawyer stated, her voice cutting through the courtroom. "She sought only to provide them with a stable, loving home, something that was denied to them from the moment of their birth." The younger twins, still too young to fully understand the complexities of the situation, looked around the courtroom with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. They held hands, a silent reminder of the unbreakable bond they shared. As witnesses were called, a picture emerged of a mother who had done everything possible to give her children a good life. Neighbors spoke of Lily's dedication. Her children's teachers described 4 intelligent, well-adjusted kids who had clearly been raised with immense love and care. The businessman's lawyers tried to paint a different picture. They suggested Lily had intentionally kept the children from their father, that she was looking for a financial windfall. But with each question, their argument grew weaker. The evidence was clear. This was a mother who had sacrificed everything for her children. When the businessman took the stand, his story fell apart. He couldn't explain why he had abandoned a pregnant partner. He couldn't justify 9 years of complete silence. His excuses sounded hollow, his explanations weak. The courtroom felt the shift. What had started as a legal battle was now something more, a moment of human truth. It was about a mother's love, a children's resilience, and the consequences of walking away from responsibility. As the day drew to a close, everyone could sense that something significant was about to happen. The judge, a woman with decades of experience, looked like she had seen through every argument, every piece of carefully prepared testimony. Lily sat quietly, her hand gently resting on her children's shoulders. She wasn't seeking revenge. She wasn't looking to destroy anyone. She simply wanted what was best for her children: recognition, support, and the opportunity for them to understand their full story. The courtroom waited. The businessman fidgeted with his tie. The children exchanged quiet glances. And Lily, she remained calm, a beacon of strength that had carried her through 9 impossible years. This wasn't just a legal proceeding. This was a moment of human connection, of truth coming to light, of a family's journey finally being acknowledged. The courthouse steps felt different that day. Sunlight bathed the old stone building, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch out like the complicated parts of human lives. Lily stood with her 4 children, a mix of emotions playing across her face. The court's decision had been more than just a legal ruling. It was a validation of her journey, her struggles, her unwavering love. The businessman, now legally recognized as the children's father, looked smaller somehow. The expensive suit and confident swagger had been stripped away, replaced by a man confronting the consequences of his past choices. "What happens now?" asked the oldest boy, his eyes searching his mother's face. He was old enough to understand the weight of the moment, but young enough to still seek comfort in her reassurance. Lily smiled, a smile that held years of hidden pain, resilience, and hope. "We move forward," she said softly. "Together." The court's ruling was surprisingly balanced. It wasn't about punishment, but about responsibility and healing. The children's father would provide substantial financial support, but more importantly, he was mandated to be part of their lives, carefully, gradually, with their well-being as the top priority. At home, that evening felt different. The kitchen, once a sanctuary of just 5, now carried the potential of something more. The quadruplets clustered around the dinner table, their chatter a mix of excitement and uncertainty. "Will we have to spend time with him?" asked the younger girl, twirling her fork in her spaghetti. Lily took a deep breath. She had always promised herself she would be honest with her children. "We'll take it slow," she explained. "You don't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. Your feelings matter most." The twins, still processing the day's events, looked to their older siblings for guidance. Family dynamics were changing, and they were navigating uncharted waters together. Days turned into weeks. Supervised visits were arranged, careful, measured interactions designed to protect the children's emotional well-being. The businessman learned quickly that being a father wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was about listening, understanding, and earning trust. Their first meeting was awkward. A neutral location, a child psychologist present, years of absence hanging in the air. The children were polite but reserved. They had each other, a bond that no outsider could easily penetrate. Gradually, things began to shift. The businessman, now trying to be a father, learned about their lives, their interests, their dreams, their personalities. He discovered the girl loved painting, just like her mother. The oldest boy was passionate about coding, showing a natural talent that reminded him of himself. Lily watched these interactions carefully. She wasn't seeking revenge or trying to create difficulties. She wanted her children to have the opportunity to understand their full story, to make their own choices. Financial support made a difference, but it wasn't about the money. It was about opportunity. College funds were established. Extracurricular activities became possible. The children could now explore interests that were previously out of reach. The neighborhood noticed the change. Whispers that had once surrounded Lily's story now spoke of her strength, her grace in an impossible situation. She continued her design work, now with a bit more breathing room, a bit more hope. Years would pass. The wounds would heal, not completely, but enough. The children would grow, understanding that families are complicated, that love isn't about perfect beginnings, but about committed middles and hopeful endings. On quiet evenings, when the house settled into its nighttime rhythm, Lily would sometimes look at her children and marvel. 4 lives she had nurtured, protected, loved unconditionally. A journey that began with abandonment had transformed into a story of resilience, understanding, and unexpected second chances. The businessman, now simply trying to be a father, was learning to. Not all at once, not perfectly, but with genuine effort. Each visit, each moment was a step towards understanding the family he had once walked away from. And the children. They were the real heroes. Adaptable, kind, supported by a mother who had shown them that strength isn't about never falling, but about rising every single time you do. Their story wasn't over. It was just beginning.